for Beginners, a podcast for you all. Hang with Chris and Gerry, talk Batman, have a ball. When you read a trade you don't understand, we'll explain it. Bat books for beginners every day.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of TBU's Bat Books for Beginners, episode 171. My name is Gerry.
And I'm Chris.
And we are your hosts.
On Bat Books for Beginners, we will examine story arcs with Batman and related characters. We'll give you the historical background of the book, break down the plot and the art, and give you our opinions so you can decide for yourself if they're worth a read.
Today's Bat book Chris and I are covering is Robin, Wanted. Chris, tell us a little bit about this book.
Thank you very much, Gerry. Hello, Bat fans. Thank you for downloading and spending some of your time with us today. Robin, Wanted, is a 144-page softcover trade paperback that was cover dated March 2007. It was originally cover priced $12.99. The book reprinted issues of the Robin title, issue numbers 148 through 153, which were cover dated May 2006 through October 2006. And the individual issues were originally cover priced at $2.50, but jumped to $2.99 at issue number 150. Ooh. Quite a jump, in my opinion. Yeah, hit the pocketbook, yeah. The individual issues had a small logo on them. On the cover, it was a circle that read 1 year later. This comes on the heels of the material that we recovered on our last podcast, the 52 event. Okay, so this was a little over 10 years ago, and this was an interesting time in DC Comics that new readers may not know about or have been exposed to, or longtime comic book fans may or may not remember. Me, I know I forgot about some of the stuff that was happening at DC at the time. There was a lot going on here, not just with the Robin book, but in other DC titles. For example, in this time, Bart Allen was the Flash, Hawkgirl took over the Hawkman title, the Legion of Superheroes title became Supergirl and the Legion of Superheroes, Holly Robinson became the Catwoman. I forgot about that one.
Oh,
that was
there.
Yeah, now Donna Troy was Wonder Woman. That one was a little bit more easier for me to accept. Diana Prince was an agent working for Sarge Steele at the time. Nightwing was leading the group of heroes known as the Outsiders. And as we'll soon see here, there are some interesting and unusual developments with the Cassandra Cain character that we'll get into later. New hard copies of this particular trade paperback can be found for slightly higher than the cover price, and online vendors have this for about $5 for about a used copy. That's the cheapest I found. Now, according to our crack research department, this just handed to me, the individual issues can't be found on Comixology. For our creative team, I'm going to go off some memory and some online resources. We have a new writer and new artist that replaced the regular Bill Willingham and Scott McDaniel and Andy Owens. Starting with this issue of Robin, the new writer on the Robin title was Adam Beechin. Adam Beechin, he's an Illinois native. He was born December 22nd, 1968. Before working on Robin, Beechin wrote for the Justice League Unlimited title based on the animated series. After this, he would go on to work on Teen Titans and Batgirl. Beechin also had numerous writing credits on the animated series The Wild Thornberrys, X-Men Evolution, Static Shock, Teen Titans, and The Batman. I think I remember seeing his credits on there. He's also written on the Batman Beyond comic book title, but I didn't find any notable credits beyond the Wildcats title. The penciler on the first few chapters of this trade paperback was Carl Kerschel. Kerschel lives in Montreal. He may be most familiar for the recent work he did on a title my partner and I enjoyed, which was Gotham Academy.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he did outstanding work there. The art on the latter chapters was provided by Freddie Williams II. Now, this is weird. Even in his own Wikipedia entry for Freddie Williams II, there's conflicting information as to the site of his birth. It was either Little Rock, Arkansas or Kansas City, Kansas. They are both cited there. It's also cited there that Williams was inspired to become a comic book artist at the age of 15 after seeing Jim Lee's artwork in Uncanny X-Men number 272. Williams is an Eisner Award winner for his work on the Seven Soldiers title featuring Mr. Miracle. He's also worked on The Flash, Green Arrow, Star-Lord, and Thor. He's written a book entitled The DC Comics Guide to Digitally Drawing Comics. And most recently, he's worked on the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover. And yeah, the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover, that's a series I enjoyed much, much more than I thought I initially would. He currently resides in Lee's Summit, Missouri. And I found out that this trade paperback has an average rating on Amazon.com of 3.5 stars out of 5. There are some 5-star ratings, and there's at least one 1-star rating. And listeners, you'll have to stay tuned to hear our rating. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Gerry.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks the guys at the research department. Good stuff.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll pass that along, boss.
Thanks.
You got it.
So Chris and I are going to talk about this story after a few messages from some of our friends.
When you talk about comics, does it sound something like this?
Look, you can't put the Superman number 77s with the 200s. They haven't even discovered red kryptonite yet. And you can't put the number 98s with the 300s. Lori Lamaris hasn't even been introduced.
Or maybe it sounds a little more like this.
You think Mighty Mouse could beat up Superman? What are you, cracked? Why not? I saw the other day he was carrying 5 elephants in one hand.
Boy, you don't know nothing. Mighty Mouse is a cartoon. Superman is a real guy. No way a cartoon could beat up a real guy.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Would be a good fight, though.
Hello, I am the constantly caffeinated Clinton Robinson, and my comics discussions can go to both extremes, but generally fall somewhere in between. On the Coffee and Comics podcast, I will review comic stories and other comics-related topics that can be enjoyed over a cup of coffee. So pour the coffee, or other beverage of choice, and join me on the Coffee and Comics podcast, available on iTunes and coffeeandcomicspodcast.blogspot.com.
Welcome back. So here is the story of Robin, Wanted. Robin is battling a skilled fighter who has blinded him with a bright light so he can't see his adversary. He is about to wound them and knock out the lights. Suddenly his vision can clear and he sees his foe laying on the ground.
Who's it?
It's Batgirl.
No.
Now he removes the mask, but it isn't Cassandra, but rather Lynx, who is dead.
What?
I know, it's very confusing. The body is cool, so she's been dead for a while. Suddenly, the GCPD show up, and Tim has to escape. Who was Tim's real attacker? Why did they kill and leave Lynx behind? Where is Cassandra Cain? Now, earlier, Tim had received a note saying that Cassandra was in trouble, and he should come to this alleyway alone, or she will be killed. Someone is planning something, but what? Now, Tim realizes that the fake Batgirl suit wasn't a true Batsuit at all. He needs to examine it, but it is in the GCPD lockup. The problem is that the cops think Robin killed Batgirl and they are hunting him. Ignoring the danger, he breaks into police headquarters to get a look at the suit. He gets hold of it, but a police officer spots him and he has to escape the building while being hunted by the GCPD. A woman calling herself Shauna is working as an assassin. She is confronted on a rooftop by someone who said she is wasting her talent and knows her real name, Analea. The mysterious figure snaps the assassin's neck. Lady Shiva arrives at Tim's place and tells him of some disturbing news from around the world. Nysa Al Ghul, who was the head of the League of Assassins, has been killed. Cassandra is missing. Tim is being framed for killing Batgirl, all in the same night. Shiva thinks that it's all part of a coup in the League of Assassins. Tim examines the fake Batsuit. He finds a piece of paper stuck to the eye-hole lining and decodes the message it contains. It says, "We have Cassandra Cain. Bring David Cain to the Blaisdell oil fields at 10 p.m. June 7th, or she dies." Tim breaks into Blackgate Prison to get to David Cain, Cassandra's father. He eludes the security and gets to Cain's cell and breaks him out. Kane doesn't give him any info on Cassandra, however. Tim brings Kane to the oil fields and is surrounded by the League of Assassins. Tim is subdued and sees the leader of the assassins, no other than Cassandra Kane.
No.
Yes, it was her. Cassandra's found out about her secret sister Analea, whom she has just killed. David Kane also trained Analea in secret, and Cass has killed her in revenge. Cassandra wants Tim to join her as her partner. She turned the GCPD against him so he would be considered an outlaw. She suggests that Tim has been manipulated by Bruce, just as she was manipulated by her father. Cassandra's taken over the League and now wants them to bring justice to the world together. She wants Tim to kill David Kane to seal their partnership. Tim refuses, so Cassandra shoots him herself. As he lays dying, David tells Tim that Cassandra and Analea weren't the only kids he raised to be assassins. Tim fights his way through the League of Assassins, and he escapes. He tells Cassandra that he is going to get her arrested so she can get the psychiatric help she needs. Cassandra catches him, and they fight. An explosion on the oil rig allows Tim to escape her. One of Robin's snitches, Killanilla, is told to give Robin a message in the form of a boomerang. Tim realizes that it is from the new Captain Boomerang, the son of the man that killed Tim's dad. This new Captain Boomerang has been working on the side of good with the outsiders. One of the Joker's old henchmen stops a GCPD car to give them a message. All of Gotham is going to die. A GCPD officer brings Robin to talk to him, and he says that Joker has a dirty bomb in one of his hideouts. It was set to go off very soon. This guy has had a crisis of conscience and doesn't want to see Gotham residents killed. Tim goes to the location, but the bomb is missing. However, there was a lot of radiation, so he knows it had been there. As he leaves the hideout, he runs into the new Captain Boomerang. They fight a little, but Boomerang is there to help, not to fight. The two team up to find the dirty bomb. The pair search likely spots throughout Gotham. They defeat Mad Hatter traps, Scarecrow toxins, and more while they hunt together. They finally find the dirty bomb in an old hideout of the ventriloquists, where it is protected by an army of Scarface dummies. Together, they defeat the dummies, find the bomb, and disable it, all in the nick of time. Boomerang and Tim aren't going to be partners, but they can be civil to each other. The end. Ooh. Yeah, so Chris and I are going to talk about our feelings for the story after these words from some of our friends.
Xenozoic Xenophiles,
a fan podcast devoted to the comic series Xenozoic Tales.
It's a post-apocalyptic adventure series filled with Cadillacs and dinosaurs.
I'm Ruth.
And I'm Darren.
We hope you'll join us as we discuss the stories, characters, and art in this excellent comic series from creator, writer, and artist Mark Schultz.
Xenozoic Xenophiles is available at podbean.com and on iTunes and Stitcher.
And find us at xenozoicxenophiles.com.
Welcome back. So, Chris, what did you think about Robin Wanted?
Well, Jerry, this book had two distinct parts, the segment with Cassandra Kane and the segment with Captain Boomerang. I'm not sure if I liked one part more than another. Perhaps I liked the Captain Boomerang bit a little more than you did. I cheated and looked at your notes before the show. Honestly, I had forgotten about this period in Cassandra Kane's history. Now, I do remember when Nightwing led the Outsiders. I do remember Diana Prince working for Sarge Steele and the great artwork by the Dodsons on the Wonder Woman title. While I think that it's interesting that Cassandra is a villain here and that's somewhat compelling. And hey, it appears now she's got full command of the English language and verbal skills now. Where did that come from? I have to admit, this side of Cassandra I found a little off-putting. Now, on the other side of the fence, we had the pairing of Robin and Captain Boomerang, rather the son of Captain Boomerang, to find a nuclear bomb. Now, initially this seemed a little forced to me, but this was an intriguing notion, pairing Tim up with the son of the man who murdered his father. And, I thought it was a bit telling that after they completed the mission successfully, Tim refused to shake his hand.
Yeah.
That was, really telling. I thought the opening bit where Tim had to break into the GCPD, to the evidence room, to me that seemed kind of long and a whole issue was devoted to it. But overall, I'd have to say this was an interesting, if not an excellent read. What were your initial thoughts and opinions on this?
Well, going through it first, I was, there are a lot of threads in this story. So it's really kind of two different stories. You have the Cassandra part of it, and then you have the Captain Boomerang part, which are really independent of each other. And there's also a number of other little threads that I kind of left out of the synopsis. We have a character called the Dodge, who is a guy who can disappear and reappear someplace, in a different place. So that was entertaining, but kind of a dead end, at least in terms of this one discrete story.
And talk about appearing out of nowhere. Literally, this character can just kind of bounce around and materialize and dematerialize. And to paint a picture to the listeners, this is somebody I totally forgot about, but I think he just sort of had a string of appearances. I couldn't find any more notes on him without doing a deeper dive with this character. But he basically shows up in a his costume is just a little mask over his mouth, and he's got on a Dodgers baseball uniform with the words with the RS taken off at the end of it. And I thought, well, how original is that? What was that character? I have no idea. And obviously something not too memorable there. So
yeah.
Anyway,
he kind of just disappeared. Then does he ever come back? I don't know. I don't remember him ever coming back.
I'm sorry, Jerry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Was there more you had on that?
Well, I just don't recall him really ever doing anything else. Do we see him much after this story?
I think he does appear in a Robin and a Teen Titans arc, but beyond that, I couldn't find anything else on this character.
Okay. Now, one thing that was interesting. Again, it was another kind of story arc that kind of goes nowhere. It's this the snitch Killanilla. And what I found interesting about this was that he would be doing things, and he was clearly being cowardly as he's doing things. But there's kind of like he's narrating his actions to somebody else. And the way he's narrating it makes him sound tough and like, oh, Robin, he knows better than to mess with me, that kind of thing. And I thought that it was entertaining, but, it ended up kind of going nowhere.
Which seemed to kind of be along with the fact of the Batgirl trade that we looked at not too recently, that we had some supporting cast that was brought in, which seemed like a great story element, but these things don't get really pursued that much, which is sort of disappointing. And you bring up a good point with the Killanilla character here.
Yeah, and I think kind of overall, this story, it's kind of hard to – it's so connected to all the other things that are going on in the DC universe at the time. You have what's going on with Tim, what's going on with Cassandra, what's going on with Boomerang. You just can't pick up these trades at this point and have really an idea of everything that's going on. It's you have all the stuff, all the fallout from War Games. You have all the the 1 year later from 52, and it's all happening here, and it kind of makes just a regular story difficult to tell. It's a lot of strings.
Jerry, I agree with you. Yeah, this is not necessarily reader friendly if you're trying to get some periphery of what's going on in the DCU at the time. And I'll spoil it right now. Cassandra fans, if you want to know how she turned bad, spoiler alert, she was being drugged by Deathstroke at the time, and she's being manipulated by him. So that's why you see her as a villain here. If you want to find out more about what's going on with the character, I will have to point you to the Supergirl title and the Teen Titans title at the time to see exactly what the eventual outcome of this was. That's a little bit disheartening to, with no editorial note to not point or lead you with which direction to go to. That's kind of sad. There was a character, too, initially here. And, we had the Lynx character, and I have to admit, I had forgotten what happened to Lynx, and I did a little research on this. She dies, and, she had already returned from the dead, only to be revealed to have been killed again in this story. And I think, my goodness, how bad is that?
Not again,
yeah. And as if we can't, get rid of her. I think the character Lynx is revived, but it's a new incarnation, and she's going to turn up later in the Robin title. And I think that's probably something we're going to get to at a point on our podcast later on. Here's a question for you, Gerry. What did you think of the Zoan character, the character in the side story of Tim getting tutored?
Again, I think that was another intriguing kind of thread. It was clear that, Tim was being tutored so that, just to show his teachers in his new school that he was serious and wanting to, keep his grades up. But it was pretty clear that he didn't need to be tutored. He's able to pass high school courses just fine without any help. And his tutor has, a little crush on him, it looks like. And I thought it was sweet. I really did like that.
Yeah, and this was something, sadly, that I think the character is, forgotten. And I have to admit, I forgot about this character. But, boy, it was nice to see some real-life human interaction with Tim going on here. And I think, again, this is in all the work we've looked at with these characters of the bad cast, the supporting characters seem to get short shrift, and there's not a lot there. But these appear to be some of the more interesting or more compelling elements of the story that we just never get followed up on, which is kind of a shame.
Yeah, it sure is. So what do you think in terms of of a ranking for this?
Well, I got to tell you, there were some nice things to like about this. One clever thing that they did do, which I always love, is when they give a shout-out to an old comics creator. There was a reference to an alley, and I think you mentioned the oil facility called Blaisdell. There was an alley called Novick, which is a shout-out to Irv Novick. Blaisdell, I think it was Ted Blaisdell. These were past DC artists and comics illustrators who were very outstanding and respected in their field, and I love when a story does that. One little touch I did like was when Captain Boomerang and Tim are looking for this nuclear device that comes upon the timing mechanism, and when it stopped, there's 52 seconds left. I mean, okay, very clever. Okay, we get it. A nice little shout-out to 52.
Nice.
Overall, boy, I was torn between a 2.5 and a 3. I think that the latter things kind of helped push my pendulum going the other way, so I'm going to give it a 3.0. I think, though, this is a story for Cassandra and Tim Completus only. If you're used to seeing Cassandra Batgirl in a heroine role, this may be a bit difficult for you to get into. But if you're curious, this might be something you want to check out. So I'm going to give it a 3.0. How about you, Gerry?
I think I would go a little higher, probably maybe barely a 3.5. I'll just give it a little benefit of the doubt. I like, it's multiple stories. I'm not going to pretend. I love Tim. I love Cassandra. I don't necessarily like her depiction as a bad guy here. But there were some things. Tim is very concerned about her and what's happened to her. He wants to get her, some mental health she needs, and I'm just gonna, just for that reason, just because I'm a Tim Cassandra fan, I'm just gonna boost it a little bit, even though I recognize that, somebody just picking this up off of a shelf, I think would be hard pressed to really get too much enjoyment out of it. There's a lot of strings, a lot of things that aren't followed up on, multiple storylines. The nuclear bomb plot is, that's kind of fun. I mean, I'll give it 3.5, a generous 3.5.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah,
great.
And I think, like you said, this is a must-read only for completists, for Cassandra and Tim. It's important to her character, this kind of arc, that this stuff has happened to her. But, I wouldn't. I just don't think for the average reader that this is a critical story.
Yeah, and like you said, there was quite a bit going on here. We had the introduction of the Dodge characters that's going to turn up in a title later. We had the apparent assassination of the Nyssa character with the head of the League of Assassins, which of all places it happened here, but I think it's going to be referenced in another title elsewhere. Yeah. So, boy, we just have a lot of wires being crossed all over the DCU at this time period right now.
That's right. We hardly even talked about Nyssa. I mean, we've seen actually in this podcast we've had quite a few Nyssa reviews, and
yeah, and she's only here with one page where she closes a deal and then she dies in a car bombing. Apparently, apparently, who knows? This is comic books after all,
That's true.
And I say that as a lover and a fan.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll bring her back. Bring her back.
Absolutely. Jerry, I tell you, with that last show that we did on 52,
I know.
We got a lot of feedback and responses, and I thought that was just amazing. Yeah. Now, I have to tell you up front, this was a challenge for Jerry and myself as reviewers, as we were covering just a portion of the work, and not the other storylines that didn't involve Renee Montoya and Batwoman. This was probably the largest work that Jerry and I reviewed for the podcast in terms of hope and the waves, not just the ripples it had on the DC universe. Now, I want to give out some acknowledgments from feedback we received. First, I want to give a huge shout out and my deepest thanks to the KSCGSF podcast over on Twitter. Now that's at KyleBenning_art. And that's someone you should follow on Twitter, by the way, who does an outstanding blog and podcast, The King Size Comics, Giant Size Fun, among others. And he was very kind enough to comment on Twitter that, quote, all I can think is that Dan Dito, regarding to 52, hated the positive, upbeat, and nature elements that 52 and the bright light it shined when he was trying to darken the DCU. Now, I think he brings up a really good point. I also read that this is a time that Batman seemed a bit less surly. And, Jerry, it's illustrated here in this trade paperback. There was a point where Batman actually allowed Tim a counter-argument when he was trying to clear his name, when Batman initially said just the opposite. Hey, this is my case, you go on the sidelines. But no, Batman actually listened and he got his opinion swayed. I want to also say that, he sent me a link to the article with some of the, quote, behind the scenes, unquote, if you will, with respect to 52 and writer Mark Waid. And Waid subsequently had a falling out with DC and publisher Dan Dito. And Waid was quoted as saying, and he sent me the link to this, and this was, on a couple of other sites that I find as well when I was doing some post work on this. Waid said, quote, the biggest challenge of 52 was actually wisely kept from us by editor Steve Wacker. Editor-in-chief Dan Dito, who first championed this concept, hated what we were doing. Hated, hated 52.
Wow.
Yeah, he would storm up and down the halls telling everyone how much he hated it. And Steve, God bless him, kept us out of the loop for that particular drama. Editor Michael Siglin, having less seniority, was able to do so, and that's one issue of 52 near the end that was written almost totally by Dan and Keith Giffen because none of the writers could plot it to Dan's satisfaction, which was his prerogative as the editor-in-chief. But, man, there's little more demoralizing than taking the ball down to the 1-yard line and then being benched by the guy who kept referring to Countdown as, quote, 52 done right. Ouch. Yeah. So that really had to be disheartening as a creator and a writer. So I want to thank that for providing that quote. Thanks again to King Size Comics, Giant Size Fun podcast over at Kyle Benning Art, who really went out of his way to shed some light on this that we did not include in our previous show. So thank you again.
Thank you.
We also heard from Mark at I'm the Gun on Twitter. He's the host of an excellent podcast of the same name. Mark responded, I find 52 an excellent palate cleanser after the distasteful Infinite Crisis finale. I really enjoyed listening with you. Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate you chiming in. We also heard from Terrence O'Neill at O'Neill Ties. He said, I loved the Series 52. It's great storytelling, and I can't wait to listen to your show. Well, thank you very much. I don't think we liked it per se as much as you did. We were coming at it from the one angle of just looking at the one particular story element, I do confess I did like the bit with Animal Man and that whole sequence there, and I did like the Ralph Dibny story elements.
Yeah.
But I just find it. I was coming at this as something that a beginner would look at, and I thought too, for the price point, this was just a little bit much for somebody to swallow, and I just didn't know if this would have been, one, reader friendly, and like, two, worth the cost. And I think that's why I ultimately didn't come as favorable as I could have been on this one. I just wanted to reiterate that. I'm glad people liked this. I think 52 resonated with a lot of people, but I don't think I per se liked it as much as someone else did.
I can see how someone would love it. I can totally get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, we also heard from Ian Miller, a.k.a. Ian Prime. He was on Twitter at, IBM Miller. And he sent us a lot of tweets, and he said, guys, I've already talked with Batgirl the Oracle, that would be Stella, about the characterization of Kate Kane in 52 versus her in Elegy. But I think it's really different. Now, Stella also chimed in on this, and thank you very much, Stella. I appreciate that. She chimed in and said, yes, it's true, but I'm glad the Batwoman character, Kate Kane, got an introduction in such a good book, referring to 52. Now, Ian goes on to say, I think you're right that Renee's story is the heart for the Bat fan, and your great summary missed my favorite quote at the end, which was her saying, Renee, I have a question. Are you ready? Yes, that is a good quote. Thank you very much for pointing that out, Ian. Ian is provides some great observations, and we always love when Ian chimes in. Now, Ian goes on to say, referring to Renee in the question, the question itself, he's far from an objectivist. Rucka draws from O'Neill's run, which makes the question more of a Zen-influenced character than objectivism. And, that is a fair point. Sure. Now, he goes on to say, I'm but a neophyte compared to you, wise bat sages. Oh, thank you very much, Ian. Bless your heart, Ian. Sometimes I think it's the years we have, and maybe not necessarily the mileage, because Ian, you are a wise friend. You're a wise man yourself, and you are a great friend, and we thank you for that. So, but sure. Yes, calling us wise bat sages, I can't thank you enough. I had to laugh at that. But okay, I'll go on to say, I am but a neophyte compared to you wise bat sages, having only read comics seriously for 10 years, but I think 52 can be a good intro. I learned a lot about the characters like Black Adam, Ralph Dibny, and many others through 52. Not that everything was a success, though. He says, for example, I hated the Morrison-written plot about Booster Gold. Clearly a warm-up for the return of Bruce Wayne, which I also hated. However, Corey, referring to Starfire, Adam Strange, and Animal Man was a fun coming-home story, and Tio Moro struggling with the villains was very engaging. On a side note, in terms of violence, I thought the crocodile eating someone was pretty violent. Shudder. And that's something, too. We do comment on the violence that we see in the stories, and going back to what we just had, I don't think we really had any concerns and qualms about the violence, but it is something that Gerry and I do like to address on our material, whether it is kid-friendly or not. Yeah. Ian goes on and he continues, lastly, while I think 52 is a better plotted story than Batman Eternal, as a Bat fan, I definitely enjoyed Batman Eternal a lot. Whoa, one last thing I forgot. GCPD is a great Chuck Nixon story, and it's also collected in the excellent Gordon of Gotham trade, prefiguring Gotham Central by a decade. Yes, I totally agree with that endorsement. Thank you so much, Ian. Let's go back, though, to a few things that Ian commented on. He really definitely enjoyed Batman Eternal a lot. Gerry, did you read either one of those, Batman Eternal or Batman and Robin Eternal?
Yeah, I read both of them, and I think that's a fair comment. I think particularly Batman Eternal definitely seemed to be wandering around. The plot, it wasn't very tightly plotted. Whereas 52, I think, was definitely much, it held together much better than that.
I think I enjoyed one of them more than another, and I'm trying to which one I think it was the one. Anytime a story element is retconned, or where Batman had this secret encounter we don't know about, and he was doing all these things behind the scenes for years. I think that kind of, I see where the writer is going with it, but when an element like that is introduced for a longtime Batman fan, that kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit with respect to plausibility. I do like the ambitiousness of such projects, though. I think some of the other characters we got to see, to see great villains. I do like when those show up. I think one of the series incorporated a more mysterious element or the magical side of Gotham, the supernatural. I think that was an element that some Gotham fans, some Batman fans, either really seem to embrace or really seem to shun from. Mm-hmm. And I could see their point, but I do like, that there are many elements to Gotham City and the lore of the characters in Batman. And when you do touch upon them, I think they're really, really great. I did like the Stephanie Brown stuff with that. That was really good. And I think it was probably, I'm trying to remember if it was Eternal or Batman and Robin Eternal, which one I like more or less. At any rate, it is what it is, and I applaud the ambitiousness of the product, if not the results.
Yeah.
So
I think of the two, I was less frustrated by Batman and Robin Eternal. I just thought it was Batman Eternal, just there was a big part in the middle of it that, I don't know, issue 20 on or something like that, where it was wandering off and coming back, and I got very frustrated with Batman Eternal.
Yeah. Fair point. Did you think... So I think Batman and Robin Eternal wasn't quite as long, too, so maybe it was more tighter of a story. That's probably what helped it, too, in my opinion.
Yeah, it could be. And it was during that whole Robin year, or, there was a lot of Robin stuff going on at that time, and I was getting into it, so I don't think that I loved Batman and Robin Eternal, but it was fun while the other Robin stuff was happening.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, well... Thank you very much for chiming in, and we thank everyone who provided a comment. In a bit, we're going to get to your likes and retweets.
That's right. So, Bat Books for Beginners is part of the BatmanUniverse.net network of podcasts. We offer all the Batman-based weekly comic book reviews, news, and some fantastic podcasts, including the flagship comic podcast, Everyone Loves the Drake, Batgirl to Oracle, and many, many more. If you like what we offer, please consider donating to us at the TBU Patreon account. You can find a link to the Patreon account on the BatmanUniverse.net website. Now, if you want to get in touch with Chris and I know, Chris, you are on Twitter, aren't you?
Yes, thank you very much, Gerry. You can find me at BTO and Batbooks. That's at BTO and Batbooks. Over there, I'll tweet some old covers of yore. I'm into, for October, I did some Halloween-themed covers. That was really nice. Yeah. I was in a local place, so I really, it was kind of tough to keep up the pace. But, now that my show's over, I got to do that. You can also find me on the Batgirl to Oracle podcast. Right now, I'm also looking at the Batman Adventures comic book series. This was a comic book series in the 90s that was based on the animated adventures of Batman. Currently, my emphasis is going to be on the Batgirl appearances, but I might put a poll out there to see if you want me to do a deep dive in each individual title. I've gotten a couple of responses already saying, hey, why don't you just look at the whole thing, not just the Batgirl stuff. So before I go any further with Batgirl, perhaps I might just do every issue. So if you follow me on Twitter, be sure to look out for a poll that'll come out around the time of the next episode of Batgirl to Oracle. Gerry, I also know that our listeners can find you on Twitter. Is this true?
I've heard the same thing. And if you want to go out to Twitter, you can see me at Professor Frenzy. That's at Professor Frenzy, where I cover my favorite DC books. I do some Dark Shadows tweeting. It's one of my favorite shows. And I do indie comics tweeting, DC comics, and Chris and I both, we do some live tweeting on Saturday nights at the hashtag Svengoolie, so join us there. That's always fun.
Yeah, Svengoolie that's always fun. Based out of Chicago, Svengoolie plays a horror movie on the MeTV channel. That would be at 8 p.m. new time slot, relatively new time slot, 7 p.m. Central Time, and I think he's at 8 p.m. on the West Coast. So yeah, we have a great time, and boy, oh boy, we've met some great friends, and it's the tweets go fast and furious, but they are very hysterical. It's such a warm group, and boy, oh boy, it's an awesome community.
Sure is. Last night was the Deadly Mantis.
The Deadly Mantis, yes. And, if you get on board, if you want to show up a little early too, you can also live tweet during Wonder Woman, or after Svengoolie, you can live tweet during the Adam West Batman reruns, and we have a good time there. So if Svengoolie may or may not necessarily be your thing, but if you do like the Linda Carter Wonder Woman series or the Adam West Batman series, you can certainly live tweet during any of those shows, or even Star Trek. Yeah, there's quite a bit of people. That's right. So yeah, the whole MeTV Sci-Fi lineup is excellent live tweets there going on.
So we've got quite a number of our friends that have been out there, too. We have Clinton from the Comics and Coffee podcast. He joins us, and that's a terrific podcast where he talks about some of his favorite old comic books and just some of his experiences, some of his mini episodes, just talking about, his old local comic book shop, just some of his old personal reflections and recollections about comics are really interesting, and I definitely recommend that folks go out and check out Coffee and Comics podcast.
Seconded. Yes, absolutely.
We also have another one that I really like is Cosmic Treadmill with Chris Sheehan, who you can see at Ace Comics, and at Reggie, who they do a terrific podcast, and they talk classic comics and with great detail and great energy. And even if the comic book that they're reviewing isn't the best one, you're going to have a good time if you listen to their podcast.
Absolutely, a great battle between the two of them. I can't highly recommend that show any higher than highest possible recommendation for the Cosmic Treadmill. Got to check it out. And of course, our friends the Sutherlands, who do Warlord Worlds, Xenozoic Xenophiles, and Trekker Talk. And Chris and I recently did a show where we talked about Batman Mask, the Mike Grell Elseworlds title, and we had a great time with them. Yeah, that was on the Warlord World, so I hope you still can check that out. That was their most recent episode, if I'm not mistaken, so I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, it's terrific. We just have a lot of folks that we're talking with on Facebook and Twitter, and it's been a great time.
Oh, absolutely. We also got likes and retweets, aside from the Sutherlands. We got likes and retweets from Warlord Worlds, the aforementioned. We also got likes and retweets from the Batman Universe, Laurel at Mountainflower1, Nedhead at Nedhead, Bill Beer over at Gotham Knight 13. Randall Andrews from Soundtrack Alley, the Soundtrack Alley podcast. You can find Randall at Randall Andrews 1.
Oh, Randy also has been doing a Gen 13 podcast.
Yes, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much, Jerry. I'm glad you chimed in there. And the Gen 13 podcast is something we recently started. And I had some great side discussion about Gen 13 with Randy on the side, and boy, he knows his stuff. And we have a lot of similar tastes, it turns out, with the characters and that Gen 13 series in particular. It was great stuff. And by all means, if you're a fan of Gen 13 or if you want to hear a good show, be definitely sure to check out that podcast along with Soundtrack Alley. Randy does a great job. Yeah. So we also heard from Dave G at Davey Gould, Ken Solo at Ken_Olos, Coop at Earphonic, DJ Lori E at DJ Lori E, Let's Talk Batwoman at Talking Batwoman. We also heard from The Joker at Joker_Bats_. Yeah. We also had a like from iZombie After Show at iZombieAS. Yeah, absolutely. How about that?
Another great show.
Yeah, iZombie. Yeah, very, did it get renewed? I hope it did.
I think it did.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, Rose, is outstanding with that. Oh, excellent. Yeah. Paul Shanley at Paul Shanley. We had like from Charlie Saul at CSaul1, Terry Stewart at Irish Knight 110, Samuel Godsafe at Godsafe Samuel, Jeff Hunter at Jeff Hun 349118855, The Dark Knight Minute at Dark Knight Min, Trekker Talk, again with the Sutherlands, at Trekker Talk, the fine podcast hosted by the Sutherlands, Reggie at Reggie, who along with the aforementioned Chris Sheehan at Ace Comics on Twitter, both co-host the outstanding Cosmic Treadmill. Thank you very much, one and all. Wow.
Yeah, thank you
so much. That was a lot of
everyone.
feedback for this particular episode. We sincerely appreciate it. Now, if I overlooked you, and perhaps it is that I did, it's a safe bet because with all the ones we had on this show, we had a lot of feedback and the response on this particular episode. If we did overlook you, please contact myself or Jerry on Twitter, and we'll be sure to mention you on our next show.
Yes, thank you so much. So that's all Chris and I have for today. Please join us in 2 weeks. We'll be covering another Bat Family book. So my name is Jerry.
And I'm Chris.
and thank you for listening to Bat Books for Beginners.
Bat Books for Beginners, a podcast for you all. Hang with Chris and Gerry, talk Batman, have a ball. When you read a trade you don't understand, we'll explain it. Bat Books for Beginners every day.